Of You Better You Bet and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider Nick Kostas. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to listen to the You Better You Bet podcast for more of Nick Kostas' analysis. Just search You Bet wherever you find your podcast. Hey, Nick, what's cooking?
What's going on, guys? Great time to be alive as a sports fan. Super wild card weekend awaits in the NFL. Niners playing tomorrow. Gotta love it.
Lau, we're all excited, and I know we want to go into the Niners-Seahawks game at length, but just as a quick aside, because we've been going randomly back and forth about this a little bit over the last hour, this Ravens-Bengals game is fascinating to me. Line moved, it seemed like, from about 10 yesterday down to 8.5, plus the division rivalry of this whole thing, and whether I love the Ravens in this game, but you tell me what's going on here and what's behind that line movement.
Yeah, so sure. So obviously, like the first movement up, obviously up through 7 was because Lamar Jackson's not going to play in this game. Like there's no chance he plays. So now it's either Tyler Huntley or Anthony Brown, and we saw Anthony Brown last weekend against Cincinnati, and it was not great. So I think we're going to be dealing with two different sets of point spreads here, guys, depending on who the Ravens quarterback ends up being. I think it's going to be Tyler Huntley. Literally in the last 60 minutes, Huntley telling the media in Baltimore that he's going to be a game-time decision. Those are his words. Like, he actually said that verbatim, that he will be a game-time decision. The betting market right now kind of tells you, with the line sitting right now, Cincinnati -9, that it is going to be Tyler Huntley as the quarterback. So what we try and do as handicappers, like what I will do at the beginning of the week, and I had to do this for the Miami game also, is you kind of sit down and you say, okay, what are my range of like point spreads that I think it should be? And like for you, the listener, the people listening to this, like you don't have to do this. Why we do it on the show. You listen to You Better You Bet. We do this so you don't have to. Where if Lamar was going to be the quarterback, Bengals -4.5 in the game. If it's Huntley, more than 7 but less than 10. If it's Anthony Brown, more than 10. So the line is currently Cincinnati -9. This is a Tyler Huntley number. This is not an Anthony Brown number. So if we get announcement, guys, coming up on Sunday that it is going to be Tyler Huntley, and that is my expectation, that Huntley will start in this game, I actually think the Ravens are a valuable bet here at +9. Not from a numbers perspective, but just because the familiarity with these two teams. They obviously played last weekend. John Harbaugh is a terrific head coach. I know Zach Taylor went to the Super Bowl last year. Anyone with a brain would take John Harbaugh over Zach Taylor. The Ravens rested starters last week, including J.K. Dobbins and Mark Andrews, so those guys should be good to go 100% for this game. And I think Baltimore can keep this game close. I don't think the Ravens can win if they're up late. I think Burrow comes back and wins the game for Cincinnati. So I do think the Bengals will win, but I do like Baltimore to cover. But let's just wait to make sure it's going to be Tyler Huntley. That is my expectation for Sunday night.
That's great analysis, and I think the Buffalo-Miami line is reflective of the Skylar Thompson factor as well. I know the Teddy Bridgewater and the Tagovailoa numbers were different as well. If you were to take your best bet of a side or a total for these 6 games, what would it be, Nick?
Oh, man, just one bet for any of
Just one, Nick, for the people?
Yeah, I'll give you a... This one sucks. Like, I hate to do this. I like the Cowboys on Monday night against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And, like, it's not a bet that's going to make me feel good. We have had a lot of guests on You Better You Bet this week, pro bettors, former players. Like, hey, who do you guys like in the game? Everyone likes Tampa in the game. So, for me, the way that I handicap games, I feel like the point spread of this game is wrong. And I know there are people listening that are probably like, well, you know, Dak's thrown all these picks, and it's Tom Brady, and the Bucs are at home, and I understand that. And I'm not saying that I'm definitely right with me liking Dallas in the game, but what I will say is I actually think the point spread's wrong here. Like, I think the point spread needs to be Dallas -3. It's -2.5. Now, we have known, guys, for about like 6 weeks that this was going to be the matchup on Wild Card Weekend, right? Dallas was going to be, unless the Eagles completely collapsed, Dallas was going to be the 5 seed. Tampa, or the NFC South winner, was going to be the worst division winner, going to be the 4 seed. So, like, I've been projecting point spreads for this potential matchup for like 6 weeks. This got as high as Dallas -5.5. And I know the Cowboys were not great to end the season, lost to Washington last week. For me, they're getting dinged too much in the market right now. So I'll lay the 2.5 with Dallas on Monday night. May God have mercy on my soul. We'll see how it goes.
That's how we all feel when we bet Dallas.
No doubt. Or make any bet for that matter. Nick Kostas is with us here on Willard and Dibs. Okay, before we get to some of the other games, let's do a dive on the 49ers and Seahawks. Right now, sitting at 9.5, opened at 10. We know there's weather. Where do you see the value in this one?
Yeah, so how is the weather there right now, guys? You guys had a bunch of rain.
Yeah, it's raining right now, and it is supposed to rain even harder tomorrow.
Yeah, so I took 10 with Seattle earlier in the week. I just felt like the point spread was a smidge too high. San Francisco absolutely needs to be more than a touchdown favorite in this game. But once it got to 10, I was like, okay, like this is a little too much here. So 9.5, I feel like number-wise is okay. I actually still like Seattle a little bit, and I do think, and I just want to say for the angry 49ers fans, San Francisco is extremely likely to win the game. So I'm not insinuating that Seattle can pull the upset, although I do think if the rain is going to be really bad, I think you bring more outcomes potentially into the equation, right? Where let's just say the rain is going to be terrible tomorrow, right? And I'm not there in the Bay Area. You guys are. That's what you guys are saying, right? The rain's expected to be worse tomorrow. We know the field over at Levi Stadium is not great. Like, that's been bandied about for a long time. Like, what happens if the field isn't great? And we know how Kyle Shanahan's offense runs. It's this timing-based offense where the quarterback gets the ball into the hands of the after-the-catch wizards, right? Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, Christian McCaffrey. If their timing is disrupted even a little bit, I feel like that benefits the Seattle Seahawks here. And if the total's going to be coming down, and that has been bet down throughout the week, we're currently sitting at 42, the over-under for this game. Like, the underdog inherently has to become more valuable with the point spread this big if the total's going to keep dropping with the amount of points going to be scored in the game. So I'll bet Seattle here. I do think the Niners will win the game and advance to the divisional round, but betting-wise here, it's Seattle or nothing.
When you're looking at props for these games, player props in particular, what do you normally look at in terms of action where you feel like you've got an edge?
Yeah, so I think like with anytime touchdowns and like yardage props are a little bit of a different proposition. Anytime touchdowns for me, like I'm not looking to lay big favorites to score touchdowns. I'm more looking for, okay, how do I see a game script playing out? Do I think that there's a chance that at the end of a game in a blowout, like a third-string running back is going to be getting action and we can bet him at a good price? Like looking at, there are stats, websites that will track these sort of statistics with red zone targets where maybe a guy's gotten a bunch of red zone targets but hasn't scored in a couple of weeks. You get a depressed price as a result. Those are the ways that I generally like to play the anytime touchdowns. Yardage will be more like on-field handicaps. And I think this is a great like line of distinction to draw between like betting the point spread of a game generally has very little to do with like what you think is going to happen on the field. Like that's what the point spread is for. It's all factored in. That becomes more of like a number thing. Whereas prop bets like, hey, I think this receiver is going to have a huge game because the cornerback he's going against is garbage. Like that's where you can be like, okay, here's my on-field handicap. And I think this is going to happen as a result of the matchup. So I'll give you one for tomorrow. With Mike Williams being ruled out by that because of that idiot Brandon Staley and what he pulled last week against the Broncos, Keenan Allen is going to absolutely eat in this game. I like Josh Palmer a little bit also. Palmer will fill in on the outside for Mike Williams. He had a couple good games this year while Williams was out, but Keenan Allen is going to be a target monster in this game for Justin Herbert. I believe his yardage prop sitting at about 75.5. For me, that's an easy over. Not that it's a lock that it's going to win, but I really like that on-field matchup, especially with Mike Williams out.
Well, by the way, while we're on that game, can you take us through what happened this week? Because it opened as Jags +2. Then it seemed to fly all the way down in some places to almost a pick 'em, but definitely down to +1. Then it fired back up to go in the other direction to +2.5, and now we have the Williams news that he's out. What's been going on in that game this week?
Yeah, so I think like a great way for people to think about stuff like this is like, yes, like LA was 2.5, then they were 1. It's been a pick 'em. Now they're 2.5 again. These are basically like the same bets in a game with a high total here, where it's never going to hit 3 on either side. And if it did, there would be resistance one way or another. So I thought Chargers favored by less than 3 was kind of something that made sense all along. If you told me that Jacksonville closed a 1-point favorite in the game, like I wouldn't bat an eyelash at that. Basically, like neither team should ever be a 3-point favorite. Chargers are a little better, so you have Chargers favored by less than 3 points here. And the Mike Williams news up till this point, guys, has not really moved the point spread at all, which tells you that bettors generally thought that Mike Williams was not going to play in this game. So the Chargers holding steady right now at BetMGM, still a 2.5-point road favorite tomorrow night on the road in Jacksonville.
Futures market's always interesting when you enter the playoffs, and Mark and I have talked about the odds to win the Super Bowl and the Eagles and the Niners virtually deadlocked, with the Niners even surging as a favorite in some books, depending on where you look. What do you think about the Eagles versus the Niners in terms of Super Bowl odds as we sit right now?
Yeah, so I mean, Philadelphia would obviously host San Francisco at any game, so the Eagles would get a bump because of that for home field advantage. I think on a neutral field, if you knew that Jalen Hurts was going to be 100%, and Hurts did play Week 18 this past Sunday against the Giants and said after the game that he basically wasn't at 100%. So if we're going to assume that Jalen Hurts is like fully healthy and good to go for a potential NFC Championship game against the Niners, you'd probably see a point spread, I would say, of Probably like Eagles -2.5, Eagles -3, I think is probably what makes sense. So if it were San Francisco, the Niners would be favored, right? That's favored because Philly would host the game. I think the two teams are pretty equal. I guess I would give a slight edge to Philly just because of the playoff experience at the quarterback position. But I guess by that point, Purdy would have won 2 games, right, to get to the NFC Championship game. I honestly think it's like flip a coin. The two teams are incredibly close. I think the betting market would be very stable in that game. Like, we would get the opening point spread would come out and stay there, basically not moving the entire week. I think it's really like a bet your opinion situation. I think I would probably bet the Eagles, but I'm willing to be swayed if and when Brock Purdy looks awesome in the next couple games leading up to Championship Sunday.
Nick, great stuff. On your way out the door, why are the Warriors -9 against anybody on the road when they've only won 3 road games all year?
Well, let me. I can tell you right now.
Yeah, -9 in San Antonio tonight.
Well, the Spurs are terrible, so that would be
well, right.
number one.
On the road, so are the Warriors.
Yeah, let's see here. I'm just trying to see who's out for. Oh yeah, and San Antonio doesn't really have a lot of players out here. Actually, I think San Antonio is going to be at full strength tonight. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty interesting contrarian play. I think you make a great point. We've talked about that on the show. That generally NBA champions, like the profile of a team, you're at least 50% on the road. The Warriors have obviously not been that. Now they can obviously pick up their level of play with Curry back in the lineup now. But I actually kind of like that look by you guys with San Antonio to cover the spread tonight. Golden State likely to win, but maybe San Antonio does get the cover. I actually like that thought a lot.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Hey, Nick, great to have you going into a monster weekend. Thank you.
Can I hit you guys with one other
Please.
betting information?
Please.
Bonus Kostas.
So BetMGM, among other sports books, actually has this market open right now, which is right now you can bet Super Bowl MVP, like who you think is going to win MVP. So I placed a couple of these bets yesterday, and a number of them were on San Francisco 49ers. So if you guys hosting the show or the listeners, if you guys think the Niners can win the Super Bowl, and I'm sure everyone thinks that, right?
Of course.
Now, it's not like the Bills, where if the Bills win, like Josh Allen's probably going to win MVP. Or Mahomes wins, Chiefs win, Mahomes wins MVP. If the Niners win the Super Bowl, this could easily be like a non-quarterback, like a non-Brock Purdy player. So, like, Christian McCaffrey's number is really interesting. Nick Bosa is 50-1 at BetMGM. Fred Warner is like 200-1. Hufanga's like 250-1. Just that it's interesting that some of these players here for the 49ers non-quarterback are at really big odds, where I would argue if the Niners do win the Super Bowl, guys, it's probably going to be someone other than Brock Purdy that's the Super Bowl MVP.
By the way, with that said, though, what is Purdy? What's Purdy's number?
I think Purdy, I can tell you in a second here. I want to say he's around like 9-1.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, so the Niners are plus 450 to win the Super Bowl. Purdy is plus 900. Like I would much rather bet McCaffrey at 14-1. I would rather bet some of the long shots that I mentioned on defense as well. And the Niners also fit the profile. If you look at teams that have had a defensive Super Bowl MVP, these have generally been like the story of that team throughout the season has been the defense, right? Whether it's, Seattle with Malcolm Smith, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Dexter Jackson, like that's the Broncos with Von Miller, the Ravens with Ray Lewis, where the Niners would kind of fit in that profile, right, of a team that could have a defensive Super Bowl MVP. And these are really long shot odds right now if you guys think the Niners can actually get it done and win the Super Bowl.
It's a great call. And if they beat Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes in that game, it probably wouldn't be 45-42. So the Nick Bosa price, what'd you say, 50-1 on Nick Bosa? That's pretty good.
Well, I mean, we bet it, so it may have dropped a little bit. I can tell you what it is right now. Bosa is still 50-1. He's 50-1 right now at BetMGM.
That Kostas money is a line mover, people.
Yeah, there it is. Hey, Nick, awesome to have you, man. Thank you.
Wishing you guys and all your listeners minimal sweats, winning bets, the absolute very best of luck. Let's go Niners tomorrow, but by 9 or less.
Okay. Or
minimal sweats and winning bets.
Or by 30, Nick. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
You'll
Let's keep
recover.
it comfy, Nick.
Yeah, you'll recover.
Thank you.